Prof, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Ndoro, and good evening to our listeners.
So KwaZulu-Natal has been quite interesting over the years. If we go back to 1994, it was a given. The IFP was going to win, rule, and be unopposed in effect. The ANC gained ground, took over, and then we started to see shifts and splits within parties. Where are we now, and how did we get here?
Thank you very much for the question, Peter. And it's a very important question for a number of reasons. As you correctly pointed out, KwaZulu-Natal has had a number of challenges in the past, but political parties that operate within this province, more especially the IFP and of course the ANC, they've tried to regroup after having faced a number of challenges. As you said initially, that the province was under the IFP, and then of course later on it was taken by the ANC, and since then the ANC has tried everything possible to consolidate its power. So, and in the process, we've seen a number of developments, including the NFP splitting from the IFP in 2011, and of course making inroads, not just in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature, where they had 6 seats, but also nationally. And then also within the ANC, we saw a number of squabbles taking place, which resulted into the party not doing so well in subsequent years, but still retaining the province and also retaining eThekwini. So there have been developments, and to make it worse, the EFF and the DA have also made inroads recently. And then, of course, you also have independent candidates who are also wanting a piece of this pie. So there have been developments, but I don't think that the status quo, as it stands right now, warrants us to then say for sure that a new political party will take over, at least in this local government election. The IFP has a chance to do well, given what happened in 2016. The EFF will make some gains, but I don't think they will have enough to make a serious impact. As for Action SA, I've seen them crisscrossing KwaZulu-Natal and eThekwini specifically, but I don't think they will amass enough support for them to displace the ANC. So the stakes are high. Everyone wants to have a piece of eThekwini, given its budget and also given its political influence nationally.
What happens with the disillusioned ANC voters? Would they vote for a faction that they don't support? Because we know that the party is split, and it may be that they belong to one faction. Would they go and put their name on an ANC candidate knowing that that person is with another faction?
You know what, Peter, there is something very interesting with the ANC. I've always made this point in different forums, that the ANC has scored a number of own goals, and in fact not under any pressure of their own doing, and they've not learned from those. But fortunately for the ANC, it is a big organization. In fact, it's the biggest organization nationally, and is the oldest organization across the African continent. So that is working to the ANC's favor. If you look at what happened in 2016, during the local government elections of 2016, the party didn't do so well. The IFP did exceptionally well, but the ANC still retained a number of municipalities. Of course, it lost some to the IFP, and with the support of the DA and the EFF, the IFP gained even more. But then in the 2019 national and provincial government elections, the factions within the ANC were evident for everyone to see. And yet the ANC still emerged victorious. Of course, the numbers were down compared to the previous election, but they still won the election in many provinces, including KwaZulu-Natal. So with the current situation right now, when we're going for the local government elections, most people are saying that the ANC stands a chance to lose the metro, that is the eThekwini metro, and to lose a number of municipalities. I happen to hold a different view, Peter, because the mushrooming of these different political parties are in fact working in favor of the ANC. For this reason, some of the people who have voted for the IFP or the DA or the EFF will now be split throughout all these smaller parties, including Action SA, which is a new political party. And to make it worse, there are over 300 independent candidates. Some of the people who will be voting for certain political parties or for certain independent candidates will definitely be wasting their votes, because you may find that you have voted for a political party, which never gets even a single seat. So literally, you have thrown your vote away. So that works in favor of the ANC, because even if it loses some members, but then those members are just all over the place. They are not consolidated in one or two official opposition parties, in which case then they would have done better. So I think that given this state of affairs, then the ANC, in fact, is benefiting more when these political parties are mushrooming as opposed to being weakened. The numbers will go down because there is also voter apathy. People are saying that what's the point of voting if we've voted for so many years and we still see no difference? But others will say, yes, of course, there is still a long way to go, but we are far better now than we were a couple of years back. So those people will vote. Some are angry, Peter. Definitely they are angry. But come election day, they will look around and ask themselves the question, if I don't vote for the ANC, where do I take my vote to? And then that's where the problem is. Some will say, okay, let me vote for an independent candidate, and then ask the question, what is in it for me? And then the answer they get from there will then determine which party they vote for. But I think even if the ANC has a lower number compared to what they got in 2016, they still stand a better chance compared to the other political parties. The only other parties that I think will make a difference is the IFP, firstly, and then of course the EFF will increase the numbers, but I don't think they will do enough for them to be able to upset the ANC. As for Action SA, I've seen Dr. Makosi Koza making the rounds and of course arguing that she is worried about the fact that political parties send their national leaders to canvass during the local government elections, which is a critical point. She was making a valid point. I don't always agree with her, but on this one, I agree with her entirely. That if you have local government elections, you should be fielding the candidates that are running for mayoral positions, that are running for being councillors and all of that. So at least they market themselves to the electorate, but this is not happening. But having said all of that, I don't think Action SA has so far done enough for it to upset the ANC.
Yeah, now this is all very interesting, but there's always that unknown X factor, which is you've got each election 5 sets of young people that have turned 18 that are voting for the very first time. And they don't have the same loyalties that our generation have, that grew up with the ANC, with the IFP. And for them, they just look around and they say, this party is not doing the job. What am I going to do with my first vote? And without that pressure of loyalty, they could upset the apple cart. You don't think that unknown quantity, because it all depends how many people show up on the day, that unknown quantity could be quite significant because they are quite a large number.
No, Peter, you are making a valid point, and it's a relevant one, but I don't think it's significant enough. I'm saying this because some of those will be voting for the first time. In all likelihood, the majority of them will be aligned to the EFF. That is a fact. Because if you look at how the EFF has been performing at tertiary institutions, it has been doing a fantastic job. But then the majority of those students, university students, do not necessarily vote when it comes to either local government elections or national government elections. But this time around, because the stakes are high, chances are their leaders would have motivated them to register, to vote, and then of course they're in good standing now to cast their vote on the 1st of November. So I think that is a valid point. But as I said earlier on, the EFF is one of the parties that is likely to do better. And we saw this happening in 2016. You saw that happening again in 2019 during the national and provincial government elections. And this is exactly because of the point we are making, that there are youngsters who don't have any loyalty to the oldest party, the ANC, nor to the IFP, and then they would rather go to the EFF or go to the DA. But the DA has shot itself on the foot on a number of occasions, including conceding defeat before the election starts by not fielding a mayoral candidate at eThekwini, for example, where other parties like Action SA, EFF, and others are saying that they want to try their luck. The DA has already conceded defeat in that sense. So, which means then that some of the members of the group we are referring to, the youngsters, who potentially have voted for the DA might then think twice and ask themselves the question, is this party serious about our vote? And then they might take their vote elsewhere. And my speculation is that the majority of them will go to the EFF, and then of course we'll still find others who would want to give Action SA a chance, and some will go to the independent candidates, and those votes will then be split, which is going back to the point I made earlier on. Instead of these youngsters giving a particular party or two political parties more energy and more power, they will in fact be spread across, which will then weaken their impact. Ordinarily, they are supposed to have a huge impact, but I don't see it happening for the reasons I've just outlined.
So much corruption has been exposed since the 2016 local government elections. We've had the mayor even, being removed. We've had these revelations at the State Capture Commission, and we've had MECs being removed and facing criminal charges. It's hard, I guess, for people to just ignore and not say this party is corrupt, this party is guilty of X, Y, Z, and still vote for them.
You know what, Peter? There is something which people tend to ignore. The reality of the matter is, or if you are the governing party, either at a municipal level or provincial level or at a national level, you are on the firing line. Everything that you do is subjected to scrutiny. But then that doesn't necessarily mean that those who are on the opposition or those who are new parties will do better than the party that is already in place. The only difference is that the incumbent is subjected to scrutiny. Let's speak just hypothetically. Let's say the ANC is removed from a number of municipalities, including eThekwini Metro. And then Party X, whatever X stands for, Party X takes over. Will corruption disappear? My answer is definitely no. You may find that there is a slight decline, but corruption seems to be part of our DNA. It's a sad reality. You see this when you go to churches, you find people who are corrupt. A church having corrupt people. What about politics? Each and every institution that you can think of, there is corruption. You can think of even the judiciary. We normally say the judiciary is independent. I always hold a different view. My starting point is that the judiciary is comprised of people who are human beings. And if we agree that judges are human beings, then we should equally agree that they also make mistakes. They say to err is human. So the reality of the matter then, Peter, is that corruption indeed is a problem. It's a pandemic in South Africa at the moment, and it's a sad reality. And it cuts across all political parties, including the new political parties. We have not seen that because they've never been subjected to scrutiny. But give them a metro, give them a municipality, then we'll see what I'm talking about.
You're confident they'll follow suit. Perhaps very briefly,
Absolutely.
Corruption is one thing, but we're now seeing murders as well. Becoming a ward councillor has become a matter of life and death. And so, again, this surely must give some voters cause for concern and perhaps pause to consider.
No, Peter, this one is a sad story. It's really a sad story because we're not just talking about statistics. We are talking about people who belong to certain homes, who are breadwinners, who are fathers, who are mothers, who are sisters, who are everything. To lose one member of the family, even if the person was not working, but there is value in that human being. And we've seen a number of these things happening. Not so long ago, we heard that an ANC candidate was gunned down. And then when we're trying to recover from that, we heard that an EFF candidate was also gunned down. And you don't really get to the bottom of it to find out why are these people being killed. By and large, you will find that these killings are politically related, but there is no evidence on the table to confirm that. In some instances, you will find that people are killed for other reasons, but when they die or when they're killed during election time, we generally assume that it's political killings. And we can't really tell whether it's because of intra-party squabbles or it's because of inter-party squabbles. So it's not easy to tell. So it's a sad reality, and I don't think it's going to end until we understand why are these people being killed. That is a serious concern.
Professor Mngomezulu, we're going to have to leave it there. I have no doubt that we'll have some interesting conversations over the next 2 weeks and the weeks after November 1. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you for having me, Peter, and good evening to your listeners.
All right, that's Professor Mngomezulu giving us his take on the elections in eThekwini in particular. And he feels that, yes, the IFP will probably gain EFF as well, but it's unlikely to unseat the ANC. That's his considered view.